So stop the war. Talking about this horrific war in the Middle East caused entirely by Israel and the United States launching their unprovoked and illegal attacks on the Islamic Republic of Iran, leading people to a war on the basis of a lie, saying to stop the Iranian nuclear weapons program. There's no proof that there is a nuclear weapons program or that there ever has been. There might have been. There's some evidence of a nuclear weapons program, but that evidence could be of a civilian nuclear program. We don't know. And I certainly wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt to Israel and the United States, which have lied so much. With Donald J. Trump, 20,000 lies. Look at his first term. When the Washington Post counted over 20,000 lies he told on the record. How many off the record? A man who was convicted of, was it 20 counts of fraud in a New York court, a man who was proven in court to have sexually abused a woman. Wow. And that's the person we're supposed to trust. Well, if we go back to Trump's first term, we know that there was no nuclear weapons program in Iran, and the United States said there was no nuclear weapons program in Iran. Donald Trump himself said there was no nuclear weapons program in Iran. He twice signed off on that. Because remember the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, painstakingly negotiated under Obama, Iran subjected itself to stringent inspections, more extensive weapons inspections by the United Nations than any other country has ever subjected itself to, proving that it had no nuclear weapons program. And in return, Iran was allowed to enrich a small amount of uranium and the sanctions were lifted. Iran's happy. The world's happy. We know they don't have nuclear weapons. The world economy is getting better. There's more Iranian oil and gas on the market. There's no possibility of war. That is good news for everybody. But there were hardliners in Iran who considered these inspections to be so extensive, so humiliating. It was a disaster. But nevertheless, obviously, Israel didn't like it because of racism, because of Islamophobia. They cannot stand a Muslim country being reasonably strong, wanted to smash it. And obviously there were warmongers in the United States who were against it. So the US Congress voted to extend it. So after Trump's first year, he decided he was going to unilaterally end it, even though it was proven that Iran was abiding by it with scrupulosity. So as Steve Schwartz, a Republican pollster, said, you left with Iran with the moral high ground. And the Iranians correctly said, well, if the deal is over, it's over. We're not obliged to abide by its terms, and we'll enrich as much uranium as we want, which is a precursor to nuclear weapons. So Trump brought Iran closer to a nuclear bomb. Is that what he wanted, to provide an excuse for these attacks and so on? Now, Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and Israel is not. Iran tells the truth about its nuclear weapons status that it doesn't have any, and Israel refuses to tell the truth, even though we know it's had them for over 40 years. And the Israeli government lied and lied and lied in the 80s, saying it wouldn't introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East when it already had done. So why on earth would you believe such an utterly deceitful government, which has carried out the Gaza genocide, which has murdered 72,000 civilians in Gaza, which has carried out torture on an industrial scale, which still holds thousands of hostages, including child hostages, including American children, and so forth. So stop the war. There was absolutely no need for this. You want to overthrow the government of Iran. Now it's a monstrous government. I shed no tear for Ali Khamenei, who was a vile, murderous tyrant. I shed no tear for Netanyahu, for Trump, for any of those lot. But it's not going to bring regime change. Very few people think it would, and that wouldn't be a legal reason for war. The United Nations Charter explicitly states that the political independence of a country is not a reason for war. You want to change the government, that is not a sufficient ground for war. You maybe argue that it should be. Okay, there's the is-or problem. That is not a legal, valid reason for war. So Iran warned them, if you do this, you storm the hornet's nest, we will fire at your bases. So they fired at US military bases in several Gulf Arab countries, and they've hit some. They've killed 6 American servicemen. There's blood on Trump's hands. Were it not for Trump, these people would be alive. And Benjamin Netanyahu talked him into it. So it's playing havoc. And then you think of the horrific atrocity committed in Iran. Was it Israel? Was it the United States? I don't know. The Iranians are saying over 500 people have been killed, most of them civilians. I've got no reason to doubt them. I don't know the Iranian government lies about these things. I know the US government and the Israeli government lie all the time, especially about atrocities in Gaza, especially about the Gaza genocide, saying we killed 70,000 civilians. There's no genocide. You know, their policy was to leave no hospital unbombed, to attack almost every single hospital, every school, every clinic, every mosque, virtually every building, deliberately desecrating churches, graveyards of Muslims and Christians. It's absolutely monstrous. So why on earth would you believe this deceitful government? Accuse Iran of destabilizing the Middle East. How destabilizing is this war? You see what's happened to oil and gas prices and thousands of flights canceled. You see what's done to the global economy. Wow. It's terrible what's happened. Anyway, it's all their fault. And Iran is entitled to defend itself. Now, I prefer this war wasn't fought at all. Prefer they hadn't shot at U.S. military bases in other countries. They claim that they're missing and hitting civilian objectives by mistake. But then again, that might be a lie. But Iran's obviously military technology is like 2 generations behind the West, is less accurate. But that school where over 100 children were murdered, girls' school, likely by the United States and the USA and Israel. They're always bragging about surgical strikes. So it's pinpoint accuracy, no mistake. They knew what they were doing. They did it on purpose to terrorize the civilian population of Iran. So this is an atrocity. Donald J. Trump, he's the commander in chief. It's his fault. It was not self-defensive. Iran never fired a shot at the United States. They never stepped a toe cap over the US border. They never claimed an inch of the United States. They hadn't attacked any US interests for decades. So this is all Trump's fault. And, the Iranians firing this British military base at Cyprus, I thought that was terrible and didn't injure anyone, fortunately. And now the RAF jets could shoot these missiles, drones down. I would like to warn the Iranians, say, don't do this and we'll stay out of it. We won't even let the United States use these military base like RAF Fairford to take off their B-52s and B-2s. But Trump isn't, Sir Keir Starmer has now allowed it. So he's allowed himself to be bullied by Trump into doing this. I want the United Kingdom to stay out of it. I'm very glad that Irish Republic were out of it. We don't have the military capability to get involved in a significant way anyway. And now, Starmer has put Britain in harm's way, and he didn't need to do so. I mean, to be more cynical, he could have earned some left-wing credentials by staying out of this war, which is a war of choice, which is totally avoidable. And if the Iranians didn't